Love is one of the most beautiful emotions in life, but it can also become the most painful when it doesn't go as expected. Many women, despite being caring, loyal, and genuine, often find themselves heartbroken and wondering why love never seems to work for them. The truth is, failure in love doesn't mean they are unworthy. It often means they misunderstood what love requires, or they've given too much without receiving enough in return. One of the biggest reasons some women fail in love is that they fall in love with potential rather than the truth of who a man really is. In the early stages of a relationship, emotions often run high, and the desire to see the best in someone can cloud reality. Many women believe that with enough love, care, and patience, they can help a man change, heal, or become the person they imagine him to be. This hope may feel romantic and nurturing at first, but it often leads to disappointment when the reality of his character doesn't align with the fantasy she created in her mind. When a woman focuses more on what she thinks a man can become instead of who he is, she unintentionally builds a relationship on illusions. Instead of accepting his flaws or acknowledging his unwillingness to grow, she invests time and emotions into a version of him that only exists in her imagination. This misplaced investment creates a deep emotional attachment that makes it difficult to let go, even when the relationship turns toxic or unfulfilling. Over time, she realizes that love cannot transform someone who doesn't want to change. It can only reveal the truth about compatibility and commitment. Falling in love with potential also comes from a nurturing instinct. Many women naturally want to fix, help, or guide their partners toward improvement. While this trait comes from kindness, it becomes self-destructive when it's one-sided. Relationships thrive on mutual effort, not on one person's mission to rescue the other. A woman who constantly gives while the other takes eventually feels drained, unappreciated, and emotionally exhausted. She confuses effort with progress and ends up feeling like she failed when in reality the relationship was never balanced to begin with. And furthermore, this kind of love blinds women to red flags and unhealthy behavior. They start to justify disrespect, neglect, or emotional distance by convincing themselves that things will get better once he changes. But love cannot survive on dreams. It needs honesty, respect, and consistency. When a woman finally sees that her love cannot rewrite someone's character, she feels broken, not realizing that she was loving a version of him that never existed. Falling in love with potential may feel hopeful, but it keeps her trapped in a cycle of waiting for someone who might never become what she deserves. Another major reason some women fail in love is that they pour their entire heart into someone else without first learning how to love themselves. They believe that giving endlessly, sacrificing constantly, and putting their partner's needs above their own is what true love looks like. But when self-love is missing, relationships easily turn one-sided. These women may seek validation from their partner, using love as a way to feel worthy or complete. Without a strong sense of self, they attach their happiness to how someone else treats them, forgetting that real love starts within, not outside of them. When a woman doesn't love herself enough, she often accepts less than she deserves. She tolerates disrespect, inconsistency, and neglect because she fears losing the relationship more than losing her self-respect. This lack of self-worth leads to a pattern of giving more and receiving less, where her efforts go unnoticed and unappreciated. She convinces herself that if she just loves harder or proves her loyalty, things will improve. But love that requires constant proving is not love. It's emotional dependency. And no matter how much she gives, it will never be enough for someone who doesn't value her in the same way she values them. Loving without self-love also creates a deep emotional imbalance. A woman who doesn't see her own value tends to attract partners who take advantage of her kindness. She becomes the emotional caretaker, always fixing, supporting, and forgiving, while her own emotional needs remain unmet. Over time, this creates inner emptiness and resentment. But she often stays because she confuses this pain with passion. She mistakes tolerance for strength, believing that enduring heartbreak is a sign of devotion. However, loving someone without loving yourself first only teaches others that it's acceptable to give you less than you deserve. Furthermore, self-love sets the foundation for boundaries, the invisible lines that protect one's peace, dignity, and emotional well-being. When a woman doesn't prioritize herself, she struggles to say no, to walk away, or to demand respect. This lack of boundaries allows emotional manipulation to thrive and turns relationships into sources of exhaustion instead of joy. True love does not require losing yourself. It requires standing firm in who you are while sharing your heart freely. Without self-love, relationships become survival rather than connection, where the woman loses herself in trying to hold on to someone else. One of the most painful reasons some women continually fail in love is their tendency to ignore red flags in relationships. In the excitement of new love, emotions can easily cloud judgment. The desire to feel loved, wanted, and chosen often overshadows signs that something isn't right. Small moments of disrespect, inconsistent behavior, or emotional distance are brushed aside in the hope that things will change over time. Many women convince themselves that their partner just needs patience, understanding, or time to mature. In doing so, they unknowingly trade their peace for the illusion of love, holding on to the good moments while denying the bad ones. Ignoring red flags usually stems from a deep emotional attachment and fear of losing the relationship. When a woman invests her heart into someone, she often develops selective perception. She sees what she wants to see, not what's actually there. Even when friends or family point out the warning signs, she defends him, believing they don't understand her love. This emotional blindness makes her overlook controlling tendencies, dishonesty, or lack of effort. The more she invests emotionally, the harder it becomes to step back and see the truth clearly. Eventually, she becomes trapped in a cycle where she hopes for change but keeps receiving disappointment. Another reason women ignore red flags is because they confuse comfort with love. They tell themselves that every relationship has problems, that no one is perfect, and that things could be worse. This mindset keeps them stuck in unhealthy patterns. Some women believe that being patient or enduring pain is a symbol of loyalty, when in reality, it's often a sign of low self-worth. They continue giving second chances, believing that love can conquer all. But true love doesn't need to be constantly forgiven. It needs to be mutually respected. The more they excuse bad behavior, the more they teach their partner that it's acceptable to hurt them without consequence. Ignoring red flags also stems from fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of starting over, and fear of being wrong about someone they loved deeply. Walking away means accepting that the relationship they imagined isn't real, and that truth can be heartbreaking. But by ignoring the signs, women end up prolonging their pain and losing themselves in the process. The red flags that were once small irritations become deep wounds over time. What begin as minor concerns turn into major betrayals. Love cannot grow in denial, and ignoring red flags only leads to heartbreak disguised as hope. Another deep reason some women fail in love is their overwhelming fear of being alone. Society often conditions women to believe that their worth is tied to being loved, desired, or chosen by someone else. This belief creates pressure to be in a relationship, even if it's unhealthy or unfulfilling. Many women stay in situations where they feel neglected, mistreated, or undervalued because the thought of solitude feels unbearable. They associate being single with failure, not realizing that loneliness in the wrong relationship is far more painful than the peace that comes with being alone. This fear becomes a silent force that drives them to settle for less than they truly deserve. When a woman fears being alone, she often accepts relationships that lack emotional depth or respect. She convinces herself that something is better than nothing, and in doing so, she loses sight of what she truly needs. This mindset makes her vulnerable to manipulation, as partners sense her fear and use it to their advantage. They know she won't walk away easily, no matter how much she is hurt. Over time, this leads to a pattern of dependency, where she stays not because of love, but because of the comfort of familiarity. The relationship becomes a safety net, a place to hide from loneliness, rather than a space to grow and connect genuinely. This fear also stops women from healing and rediscovering themselves after heartbreak. Instead of taking time to reflect, they often rush into new relationships to fill the emotional void. The excitement of new love temporarily distracts them from their pain, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. Without healing, old wounds resurface, creating the same problems with different people. The fear of being alone keeps them in a constant loop, seeking validation from others instead of finding peace within themselves. True emotional independence can only come when a woman learns that her happiness does not depend on anyone else's presence. Furthermore, the fear of loneliness clouds a woman's ability to see her true value. She begins to believe that being in a relationship, no matter how unhealthy, is better than facing the world alone. This insecurity often stems from childhood experiences, societal expectations, or past rejections that left her feeling unworthy of love. As a result, she clings to people who give her even a fraction of attention or affection, confusing attachment with love. But love built on fear cannot last. It only deepens the wounds of insecurity and dependence. Until a woman learns to find strength and comfort in her own company, she will continue to repeat the same emotional mistakes in love. A powerful reason many women fail in love is emotional dependency. The tendency to rely entirely on their partner for happiness, validation, and self-worth. When a woman becomes emotionally dependent, her sense of peace and confidence begins to revolve around how her partner treats her. If he is affectionate, she feels loved and secure. If he is distant, she feels lost and anxious. Her emotions become controlled by his behavior, and she loses her inner balance. This dependency often begins subtly, growing from deep affection, but soon it becomes an invisible chain that ties her happiness to someone else's moods and actions. Emotional dependency can make even the strongest woman forget her individuality. She begins to prioritize her partner's needs, opinions, and comfort over her own. Over time, she stops making independent choices, silences her own desires, and molds herself into the version she believes he wants. When love becomes the center of her identity, she risks losing the very essence of who she is. Instead of two complete individuals sharing love, the relationship turns into one person giving endlessly while the other receives. This imbalance slowly destroys her confidence and creates a deep fear of being abandoned, which keeps her trapped even in toxic situations. Another dangerous aspect of emotional dependency is that it blurs the line between love and need. A woman who is emotionally dependent doesn't just want her partner, she needs him to feel whole. This kind of attachment makes it nearly impossible to let go, even when the relationship becomes painful. The fear of separation feels unbearable because she believes her life will lose meaning without him. Emotional dependency convinces her that she cannot survive on her own, even though she once did. It tricks her into mistaking control, obsession, or possessiveness for love, when in truth, it is only fear disguised as devotion. Furthermore, emotional dependency prevents women from building healthy, balanced connections. A relationship should be a partnership between two emotionally strong individuals who uplift one another, not one person carrying the weight of both. But when dependency takes over, communication weakens, boundaries blur, and self-respect fades. Instead of expressing love freely, she begins to seek constant reassurance, approval, and attention. Which is why one of the communication resources fails when the other person feels upset and loses contact with the social environment. The more she depends on him to feel secure, the more unstable the relationship becomes. True love cannot breathe under the pressure of emotional dependency. It needs space, confidence, and mutual trust to grow into something lasting and real. One of the most common reasons some women fail in love is that they confuse sacrifice with love. Many grow up believing that true love means giving endlessly, forgiving constantly, and enduring pain without complaint. They are taught that a woman's strength lies in her ability to tolerate, to stay, and to fix what's broken, no matter how much it hurts her. As a result, they measure their worth in how much they can give, rather than how much they are respected. In the process of proving their loyalty, they forget that love should never require one person to lose themselves entirely. Love demands effort, yes, but not suffering as proof of devotion. When sacrifice becomes the foundation of a relationship, it slowly erodes emotional balance. A woman who gives too much often ends up in relationships where her needs are overlooked and her feelings undervalued. She becomes the one who constantly adjusts, compromises, and carries the emotional weight, while her partner gives the bare minimum in return. Over time, she begins to feel drained and invisible, yet continues to convince herself that this is what love is supposed to be: difficult, demanding, and selfless. But real love is not a test of endurance. It's a shared bond built on equality, where both people contribute, care, and compromise without one person being emotionally exploited. Confusing sacrifice with love also traps women in cycles of guilt and obligation. They fear that setting boundaries, saying no, or asking for more will make them seem ungrateful or selfish. So they continue giving until they have nothing left to offer. This type of emotional self-abandonment often attracts partners who take advantage of their kindness, mistaking their silence for consent and their patience for weakness. The woman becomes so focused on maintaining peace that she forgets she deserves it too. Love that constantly requires her to diminish her needs is not love. It's emotional servitude disguised as devotion. Furthermore, this mindset causes many women to romanticize pain. They start to believe that if they suffer enough, one day their partner will see their worth and love them back the way they deserve. They see endurance as proof of commitment and struggle as the price of love. But true love should uplift, not deplete. It should bring peace, not pain. When a woman learns that she doesn't have to sacrifice her happiness to be loved, she begins to understand that love and suffering are not the same. Until then, she remains trapped in a cycle where her biggest strength, her ability to give, becomes the very reason she keeps getting hurt. Another major reason some women fail in love is the lack of emotional maturity, both within themselves and in the partners they choose. Emotional maturity means understanding one's emotions, communicating effectively, and handling conflicts with patience rather than impulsiveness. Many women enter relationships driven by passion, attraction, or loneliness without truly understanding what emotional compatibility requires. They confuse chemistry for connection and attention for affection. When emotions run high, they may overreact, withdraw, or expect their partner to read their mind instead of expressing their needs openly. Without maturity, even the strongest love struggles to survive, because emotional chaos replaces understanding and balance. When emotional maturity is lacking, women may fall for the idea of love rather than the responsibility it requires. Real love demands consistency, communication, and growth, not just romantic gestures or promises. Yet, some women remain in a fantasy-driven mindset where love should always feel magical, effortless, and dramatic. When challenges arise, as they naturally do in every relationship, they interpret them as signs of failure rather than opportunities to grow together. This leads to frustration, blame, and misunderstandings. They expect perfection from their partner, but often forget that both people are human, both capable of mistakes and growth. Without emotional awareness, love becomes unstable and easily shaken by small conflicts. A lack of emotional maturity also leads many women to repeat unhealthy patterns. Instead of reflecting on why a relationship failed, they rush into another one without healing or self-discovery. They attract partners who mirror their emotional state: immature, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. This repetition creates cycles of heartbreak, where the same story plays out with different faces. Emotional maturity requires self-reflection, accountability, and growth. But when these are absent, relationships become emotionally draining rather than fulfilling. A woman who does not understand her own emotions cannot expect someone else to understand them for her. Growth must start from within, before love can flourish on the outside. Furthermore, emotionally immature relationships often lacked stability and mutual respect. Partners argue to win, not to understand. Feelings are used as weapons and silence becomes a form of punishment rather than reflection. Without emotional maturity, love turns into a battlefield of pride, insecurity, and misunderstanding. Women who fail to recognize this mistake often interpret emotional drama as passion, thinking that constant highs and lows mean deeper love. But true love is calm, respectful, and emotionally safe. It requires two people who can communicate honestly, take responsibility for their actions, and choose peace over ego. Without that level of emotional growth, love becomes a temporary escape rather than a lasting connection. In the end, the reason some women fail in love is not because they are unworthy, unlovable, or incapable of happiness. It's because they give their hearts without protecting their peace. They love deeply but sometimes forget to love wisely. They nurture others but often neglect their own emotional needs. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, and every wrong person is not a sign of weakness, but a lesson in self-worth and awareness. Love is not meant to break you, it is meant to build you. But only when it's shared with someone who values your soul as much as your heart. The moment a woman learns to respect herself, set boundaries, and understand that solitude is not emptiness, she begins to attract the kind of love that honors her completely. True love will never require her to lose herself. It will help her become even more of who she already is.